Hello, my divine being, and welcome to this week's episode of Confessions of a New Age Goddess. As always, I'm the New Age Goddess herself, Melissa. Joining me today is Sophia LePage. Sophia is a rebel queen and feminine embodiment and leadership coach. She has dedicated the past 4 years to helping women around the world release, hustle, and burnout to reclaim pleasure inside their bodies, relationships, and businesses. A decade ago, after a messy divorce, Sophia broke free from the good girl programming, ignited her feminine magnetism, and began leading herself from a place of desire. She traveled with shamans, sat with gurus, and studied the esoteric and tantric arts, and now lives in Bali with her husband and 2 cat babies. So, Sophia, welcome to the pod.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited for this conversation and where we're going to go.
Yes, likewise, very much so. And then, Sophia, if you don't mind sharing with us, where in the world are you joining us from?
Yeah, so I'm joining you from Bali in Indonesia, so all the way across the world. And it's like the morning time. There's a beautiful morning light, so I can see that from my office. And as you shared in the bio, I've lived in Bali actually for 5 years now. So it was the last place on my kind of like spiritual awakening journey that I landed. And where everything sort of came together, all the teachings, all the learnings, and that's where I launched my business. So I'm just so excited to be here and to share a little bit about, what I do and where I've come from. And so I guess I could like share a little bit about my background. Like you mentioned about the divorce, but that was kind of like the catalyst, the moment of the shift. But before that, I grew up really, I feel like I came out of the womb like as a perfectionist, really. Like I feel like I came out of the womb really competitive, like comparing myself to everyone. My mom said that I didn't walk until I could actually walk and not fall. Mm-hmm. And so, that really set the tone for my life. I would only do things if I felt sure that I could succeed. So I sort of put off a lot of things in life, and I was always comparing myself to others. I always felt like my best needed to be better than everyone else's best. So I had a lot of anxiety. And I was, in that kind of good girl programming, really putting my worth in what I could bring to other people. So like that classic people pleasing tendencies. And that kind of built this beautiful cage for me where I was living a life. I had the white picket fence life. I was doing all the things. On the outside, it looked like I was really successful, but on the inside, I just felt so disconnected. Like I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I even liked. I didn't even know what I liked. Everything that I liked was based off of what my partner liked or my friends liked. And that was where I was at that point when I turned 30 and I was in this marriage that suddenly I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I don't even know who I am. And I don't feel that I can explore that inside of this container. And at the time, I didn't have the tools that I do now or the self-awareness that I do now. And so my out was a string of affairs that kind of like, it was like, I didn't know what to do. So I just blew it all up. I blew up my reputation, blew up my marriage, blew up my friendships, just the whole thing, kapow. And in the aftermath of that was when I really had to sit with myself and look at all the judgments I had of myself and others, of like how I'd gotten to this place where I had done something that was so destructive. And that was what sparked my journey that eventually led me into coaching, but was not my intention at all. When I started my journey, I had no idea even that coaching existed. So that's probably why I felt like I needed to go on this huge worldwide journey, right? Doing all the things. I kind of wish, in some ways, I love my journey and I'm so grateful for it. But I also, now I'm like, wow, it's so amazing that women get to experience like healing and growth from home by clicking on Zoom or listening to a podcast, because when I was doing, starting my journey, none of this existed. So I'm really grateful that you've created this podcast for women, so that it makes it so much more accessible for women to find the knowledge and the healing that they desire. So yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I mean, so many relatable points with the anxiety and the, perfectionism, really. I don't want someone to see me trip and fall. And then really, you even said it yourself. What do I even like? Who even am I? Are these beliefs even mine? And that chiseling away at yourself, that whole notion of you're in this piece of marble and you need to see what's really underneath. And it is that process, right? And yeah, I think that is so great too, that now we have all these platforms that I can connect, with people all over the world, right? And really find that common ground, really find how alike we really are, and that, we're not crazy, and that this is just part of that learning process. And some of us go through the steps and some of us don't, and that's okay. But those of us who are, hungry for self-discovery, hungry for that change, there are ways to go about doing so in a safe, guided manner.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that's the biggest takeaway from that. And I think, I thank you for sharing that. But, you did talk about the feminine, right? You did talk about the feminine energy, and how would you describe how you work with that in order to build success or what have you?
Yeah. So my journey with the feminine, I feel that a lot of the competitiveness and the comparison and the perfectionism and the anxiety and the disconnection from body was because I was disconnected from my feminine. So I was operating much more in a masculine kind of energy, which is what our society is patriarchal. So, it's like, this is the energy that we're told. Masculine energy is powerful, feminine energy is weak. And if you want to succeed in your life or in business, then you need to be in your masculine. So that looks like, not showing your emotions, right? At work, it looks like popping a pill when you're on your moon. I call it your moon, like when you're bleeding, when you have your period, and just keeping going. It's like, oh, you're crazy in the premenstrual time, like all these kinds of like insidious little beliefs that are implanted in us as we go along that teach us to be afraid of feminine energy, or to sort of minimize feminine energy, or to kind of like feel like it's only about the way that you look. So the only thing that we see in our society around feminine is physical beauty, right? Which is also very prescribed of what that can even mean. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's about putting on a girly dress, wearing pink. Like, this is what it means to be feminine according to society. And so the work that I did first was to reclaim all those parts of me, reclaim my emotions, reclaim my multidimensionality as a woman, like my fiery rage and my really soft, open, loving, goddessy self, and to recognize the power in the feminine, to slow things down, to connect more with my womb and my intuition, to learn how to circulate my sexual energy and tap into that feminine magnetism, right? And so what I do with women now is I help them reconnect with those parts of themselves, first of all, because it all starts from within. So it's first of all about bringing that energy into the body. Our society is so mind-based. It's very heady. And so for me, what I feel it's descending the energy down out of the mind back into the body. So I work with Tantra and sacred sexuality and sensuality and pleasure, and helping women reclaim that, feel empowered by the essence of themselves. And then that naturally starts to flow into their work. So then I help them weave those energetics into their businesses. So shifting the way that they work to be more in harmony with their cycle, or feeling that they can go into their workplace or into their business and be more authentic in what they're truly feeling, and connect more with their expression. And I feel that when women are no longer trying to put a mask on, it's like they find their voice, and then they're speaking with so much more conviction. And the women that I work with find, even in very masculine dominated environments, that when they're truly owning their feminine, that the men in their environment are actually being quieter, like listening to them, respecting them more. So what we've been taught about how the feminine makes you weak is so different from the reality when we truly own embodied feminine energy.
Yeah. And you put that, so eloquently, because I have felt this way for a long time, that, femininity, it's kind of like a superpower, right? If you've really tapped into it to that authentic level, like you expressed. And what I think is that men, society, what have you, saw that as, like the superpower as a threat. So it was all about suppression then. I think, I'm not the only person who thinks this, right? It's kind of out there, but it was kind of suppressed because they saw how powerful it was. They saw, hey, this is something I don't have. Yes, we all have divine masculine, divine feminine, but it is different when you're a woman identifying. So it was kind of seen as this threat. So then when you kind of have that light bulb moment and realize that, it's like, oh, well, then I really do need to develop this skill or this side of me, and use it to my advantage. And I think, to your point, the men started listening to the women who display it more because they see how authentic it is. They see how it just kind of flows and oozes out of them so naturally. And it is, it's magnetizing. It's magnetizing in a way. Definitely, for sure. Okay, great. And then piggybacking off of that, you did mention Tantra. And it's so funny that we're doing this interview now, because literally a couple of days ago, I mentioned Tantra for a different reason. And the person I was talking to was like, well, what is that? I never heard of that. And I explained it to the best of my abilities. But could you kind of, tell the audience what that is, what that art is, and how you can use it?
Absolutely. So it's quite interesting because when I grew up kind of like in a Christian sort of environment, and I remember just feeling like a lot of the teachings just didn't resonate for me, and so I started to kind of decide what I wanted things to be. So I was like, and I also, even when I started learning about spirituality, and I was like, oh, it seems that we're supposed to transcend the body and give up all the earthly things and not really be human. And I was so confused by that, because I was like, surely if we're human and we're in a human body, we're meant to have a human experience. So how can all the human things be wrong? And so I was like, I feel like it should be that, it's through the human experience and being in the gratitude space and being present with all of that we really can reach to this enlightened space. And then when I was on my spiritual journey, and I was traveling, and I was doing a yoga teacher training in Guatemala, in San Marcos, which is kind of like a spiritual hub in South America. And on this teacher training, I didn't really take any notes, but I took 2 notes. One day they started talking about Kundalini yoga, and they started talking about Tantra. Mm-hmm. And as they started talking about Tantra, I had this realization of, oh my God, this is what I believe. It has a name. Yeah. It's been around for 5,000 years. I didn't make this up. Other people think this too. And so what I like to explain Tantra is it's the art of living. It's the art of being in the human experience, in the presence of everything. It's finding the divine in the mundane human experience, or it's finding the divine through your sexuality, through your sensuality, through your sexual experience. It's finding the mundane, the divine in the deep presence and recognition of pleasure in every single moment. So the pleasure of feeling the breeze on your skin, the pleasure of looking at the sky as it changes from a sunny day into a stormy day, you know, like there's pleasure is available to us in every single moment. It's just about getting like out of the headiness of it again, bringing the energy back into the body so that we can be in this moment, not in the past, not in the future, and feel our divinity, feel our oneness, feel our connection to God as God through the very human things. So that's how I love to describe what Tantra is.
Yes, no, and I'm glad, you know, you said it that way, because, you know, it can have all these negative connotations of, oh, it's just about sex, it's just about orgasm, right? But it's really all of these other things that lead up to it. It's, to your point, it's even like, oh, biting into a piece of chocolate, you know, it's the way you do it when you're fully present with the now moment. And that's why the now moment has so much value, more so than I think people even realize, right? But it's that, to your point, the art of living, the art of doing it in such a way that everything is like this immersive experience. And I mean, Tantra, even if you want to translate the Sanskrit wording of it, I know it means like woven or being interwoven into something. And yeah, it's something that we can all do, you know, all the time. It doesn't always necessarily have to be just with a partner, right? But it's an experience with yourself and the universe around you. That right there is a shared experience too.
Yeah. And, you know, just to add one little thing to that, I feel that even Tantra can be woven into your work, you know, as a woman. Like learning to circulate sexual energy, which is through tantric breathwork practices, ignites your magnetism and your radiance. So you become a natural magnet, right, for the opportunities, for the success, for the clients, for the money, for the whatever it is that you're wanting to bring in. So I feel like it's kind of like one of the foundational pieces of feminine business practices and successes as a woman. And it's so great because we don't have to do so many things. It's more about like our internal, who we're being, that then becomes that attraction force for what we desire. And so it's like slowing down, you know, going slow to go fast, right? And I feel like that's a classic tantric teaching. Like, get out of all this busyness, come into this moment. What do you desire? And like, let's focus on that. So I just wanted to add that little bit.
No, that's great. That's great. And it's kind of, it just reminds me of like that flow state of when, you know, I am being highly vibrational, or I am feeling very, you know, just sensual with myself. And then, yeah, in your business, in a piece of art, in so many things, it can play a part without you even realizing it, because it's just so embodied in you. It just kind of like oozes out of you in ways that one wouldn't normally expect, I feel like. So that's kind of fun too. But yeah. And then branching off of that, something that also correlates with this theme, with Yoni wands, Yoni eggs. I've seen them. I've never used one personally. A lot of people don't know what they are. I mean, you know, future Melissa probably will do it. If you could kind of, you know, explain to us what they are, what their purpose is, all that fun stuff.
Yes. Oh, love this. So I work with both, and I actually sell both on my website. So if anyone's interested, you can go to my website and you'll find them there. But so Yoni eggs and Yoni wands are made of crystals. So crystals have a consciousness. They have many healing properties. So you can get different crystals for different purposes. So a lot of people start with the jade, which is very grounding. It's really great for physical healing. It's great for sort of drawing out imprints from the body. And so the principle behind yoni eggs and yoni wands is that our sort of womb, whole yoni, vulva area carries a lot of imprints. So the womb space is the center of intuition for women. This is where we get it. This is our connection point really to spirit, and to like the deeper yearnings and longings of our soul. So what happens is through life, we take on these imprints, we take on these beliefs about what it means to be a woman, about how we should be showing up. We are taught to pay attention to logic and not to intuition. So we're basically continually taught, don't listen to what you actually feel, deny that experience. And so in order for us to cope in this very kind of logical and patriarchal society, it means shutting down those sensitive parts of ourselves because we're taught that those parts aren't welcome. Mm. And that also means shutting down our no, right? We're taught that to be desirable as a woman or a girl, you should say yes. You should be nice. You shouldn't rock the boat. You shouldn't be a diva. You shouldn't be demanding. You should be the cool girl. You should be the good girl, which means don't have a no. Say yes. Just keep saying yes, say yes, say yes, say yes. So every time we deny or discount our no, it requires us to become more barriered. So we have to kind of numb down in order not to feel the pain of that disconnection. And so what happens inside of the vaginal wall, inside of the womb, is it becomes numb and tight and rigid. And this leads to blocks in connecting with our sexual energy, in connecting with orgasm, in connecting with pleasure. And so working with the egg, this is both the egg and the wand can help to release imprints from the yoni. The egg is more related with the womb. So it's about releasing past lover imprints, because also every time we have a sexual connection with someone, they imprint inside of our womb. So we end up with all these other people's emotions, feelings, beliefs kind of in our system, which no wonder so many women feel so confused, right? Because it's like you've got all these different voices in there that don't belong to you. Yes. So that helps you release those. And both the egg and the wand help to tone the vaginal wall, help to release numbness and tension, help to increase sensitivity, soften that whole area so that orgasm becomes more accessible, so that pleasure is more intensified, and so that you can truly hear your intuition. A lot of women feel like, in relationships, right? They're like, oh, this guy, I knew there was something going on, but I ignored all the red flags. So if you're a woman who feels like you always seem to ignore the red flags, or you didn't see the red flags, then womb work, yoni work with the egg or the wand could be really powerful for you to kind of like reconnect yourself with that energy. So it is an ancient tantric practice, and very, very powerful, and very, very healing for women, I feel.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think a lot of people don't even realize all of the benefits tied to it. They might just say, oh, I've had a couple kids, I want to be a little bit tighter. And yeah, it can serve that purpose too. But also, to your point, the imprints, well, what if you were assaulted? That's an imprint, right? So can, add value in that region too, to assist with that. And also, yeah, to your point, the intuition, the intuitive nature. I mean, when someone tells me that they're not intuitive, it's almost like you have to laugh, because everyone is. It's just tapping into it. It's just, to your point, maybe removing a block, or just knowing how your intuition gets expressed to you. So if you're working with that region, you're already one step ahead. And kind of to sum it all up, it sounds like in society, being authentic is almost like this act of rebellion. Being who you really are, it's almost like, well, I have to break all the rules. I have to go against maybe what I was taught. And to your point, removing that good girl mentality, but wow, how have things come to this degree where to be who I really want to be is seen as bad girl or is seen as not right. That's just so backwards to me, but it's very relatable too at the same time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then kind of going off of that, were there some taboos about female sexuality, or, shame that, society does put on that divine feminine that we didn't hit, that you really wanted to drive home?
Yeah, I feel that when it comes to sexuality, similar to feminine energy, what we're taught about feminine sexuality is all about how it looks on the outside. So we're taught that being sexy is dressing sexy in terms of what a man would find sexy. Being sexy is sort of looking a certain way and it's making certain sounds. So it's kind of like it's become this very pretty sort of, perfected kind of image of what sexy is. And so I feel like for many women, and I certainly felt this before I started this work, was that I had real trouble sort of letting go during sex. Like it was always in my mind. I was thinking about, do I look fat right now? Do I look good? Like, oh, what noise should I make? What should I say? It's very much about like what was going to please my partner rather than what felt authentically and good and pleasurable to me. And so I feel like for women, there's sexuality is also in context of what is pleasing to the male eye. And so it's quite taboo really still for women to feel their sexuality for themselves and self, for instance, like self-pleasure, is still like a very taboo thing. But it's something that I feel is really, really important for women to have that exploration with their own bodies and their own pleasure, and to really start to connect with, what do I actually like? What actually turns me on? What type of touch feels good? How does my body want to move? And this is something that I feel is part of why I love to bring dance in. I dance a lot and I love to invite my clients into that as well, because that's also about not what does it look like, but what does it feel like? What movement turns me on? What does my body desire to express? Not what's going to look hot for somebody else. So I think that the biggest taboo still in feminine sexuality is women experiencing pleasure and owning what they truly desire, what truly turns them on, and expressing that. And I feel that actually men really want to know how to turn a woman on. They want you to have a great experience. They want to know but so often women don't speak up, or they fake it because they don't want to hurt the guy's feelings or hurt his ego. And it's like, don't worry about all of that. Like there are ways to say it where it's really an invitation, and men will thank you for sharing where you're really at. So I feel like that, that's such a big part of it. And it is that rebellion. And I feel like, well, fortunately, we are coming into a time where authenticity is really starting to be valued. And that's a shift I've seen in the last 10 years from where I started, where it was all about wearing the mask. And I feel that's shifting now, and it's becoming more of a desire of the collective to be in harmony with our true selves and to be in that authentic space and create those authentic connections. Yeah.
Definitely. I think anything that has those verbiage in it where they say true self or authentic nature, I'm like, my ears are open, because it's just like all about getting to that state, and you can get to that state in a lot of different ways. Right. And yeah, also to your point, asking for what you want. And then how do I know what I want if I don't even know myself? Okay, I know myself, I know my body. Now I know what I like, what I want. And now I have to be vocal and ask for it. And it is about saying no sometimes when you know you don't like something, right? So I think it's having that ownership, having that boundary, and also being vulnerable. It is a sense of vulnerability, because you're really, broadcasting your true nature, so if I'm wearing a mask and I get rejected, not that big of a deal. But if it's my true self, now it's really guttural. Now it's really honing in to who I am. So I think once you're able to kind of pass through that feeling of insecurity or whatever it may be, then you can really flourish. And then it's quite powerful as well. Okay. And then just kind of, I know you said, you do work with clients. What exactly is working with you look like? I know you did mention dance, but if you could dive a little bit more into that.
Yeah. So the women that I typically work with are women who are high achievers, who've built successful businesses, but they've done it from this space of the hustle, very much in masculine energy. And they're at this point where they're like almost at burnout, or they have burned out, and they're just like, oh my God, I feel so disconnected from my feminine. What even is that? I'm tired, I'm drained, I live on coffee, like all these kinds of things of like, oh, I feel like I need to get Botox or something, all this kind of like stuff. And they're like, I want to feel like alive. I want to feel juicy. I want to feel myself. I want to feel pleasure. And I've got no idea how to do that. So the work that we do together is around connecting them back into that energy. So we do a lot of feminine embodiment practices. And I love one-to-one coaching, because I feel like you never know exactly where you're going to go. So like a session will start, I don't know what she's bringing today. And then she'll start talking and sharing. And then it's just like, I open the channel and a practice comes through. And so I'll just guide her into, sometimes it's a guided meditation. Sometimes we do energy work. Sometimes it's dancing. Sometimes it's breath work. Sometimes we just talk, so it's like a whole range of things. I feel like it's the delicious and yummy smorgasbord of what can be brought in this container. And what I'm finding as well for women is that a lot of women don't have a woman in their life who is embodied in this thing, who is living what the life that they're desiring to create. And they feel very alone. They feel disconnected from sisterhood. They feel like their friends maybe aren't into what they're into. And so they have this real craving to be able to just come and say whatever, to be able to get a little witchy and mystical and magical and pull some tarot cards and, like just really kind of be celebrated for who they truly are. So that's what I feel like overall, what it's really about is so much permission for them to follow their desire, because I feel like deep down, every woman knows what she wants. It's just she doesn't feel like she has permission to have it. So I'm like, all the permission, the celebration for all that they've created, for everything that they're stepping into, the support along the way of like, whatever question, nothing is off limits, a space of no judgment, right? Where all parts of them are truly welcome, which is one of the most healing things I think that any of us can experience, is that space where it's like, you just get to be, you get to drop all of the masks. And And I'm not there like, what the hell? I'm like, wow, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. Wow, that's so incredible that you feel, like letting yourself be truly seen. So that's kind of, it's so hard to explain the magic, right, that happens inside of these containers. But yeah, it's just the most beautiful work. I absolutely adore the women I work with. They're such goddesses, honestly. And I'm just like, yay, soul sisters, I feel like.
For sure. No, I love that. I love that you said, like there's a toolbox of different modalities that we can go into. And yeah, like you don't know what's going to pop up. It depends on who you're working with and where they're at and what fits their needs. So I love how it's not one size fits all, because nothing should be. We're all so different. And yeah, that's another thing too. Like sometimes you kind of know what you want in a sense, or what it would feel like, but it's like, where am I seeing an example of that? Where am I seeing guidance on this? And how do I even go about taking that step to get to where I want to be, or who I want to be, or who I really am? And, once you kind of have the instructions, if you will, or next steps, then it's a lot easier. And then, yeah, to also hold a space for another and hold a safe space, and being that clear vessel or that clear conduit, so that that person can be themselves. And if it's their first time doing this, that it's kind of like baby steps. It's their first time doing it. If they can do it one-on-one with you, then, gradually it grows and grows who they can really be their authentic self with.
Yeah. And I think it's also about developing the sovereignty, right? Developing it's not about me telling a woman what to do. It's about me offering a reflection and inviting her to take something on if it feels good for her. And I think that that's really important, because we've been our whole lives told what to do. And this is what I love about coaching. I feel like it's the offering of reflections, the offering of invitations. And I feel like it speeds up the process more than, say, therapy, which is you don't get anything. Like, it's like you're gonna be asked a few questions, and eventually you might get to the answer. So it can take a super long time. So I feel like there's a timeline speed up inside of coaching as well, and that calibration to the energy of this person who's already embodied in it. Whereas with a therapist, it's like they were trained to do this, but they probably have a totally different life to what you have. So it's so much in the mind. So yeah, I just wanted to add that little piece in as well.
Yeah, no, and that's really good too, because it's still like, you still have to take ownership for your journey. You still have to do the work, right? So it's good that you're still not taking that person's power away, but you're empowering them to take those next steps. And it might look like this and it might look like that, but they're making the decision and feeling into it, which is going to help with intuition and other arenas as well. Okay, great. Yeah. So then, was there anything else that you wanted to share, something we didn't cover that you really want our listeners to know?
Well, let me see. I feel like I really just want to share the permission, right? Of like, if you are listening to this or watching this, you already know what you want. A lot of women say, I just don't know. But what they really mean is, I don't think I have the permission to have it. So what I want to give to you or offer to you or invite you into is to get really, really quiet and just feel like, what is that thing that it almost breaks your heart to own, like that deep, deep longing. It often looks or feels like or expresses as sadness. It can at first, of like because it's the yearning of the feminine soul, right? It's the yearning for the thing. So whatever that is your soul telling you what's possible that you haven't tapped into yet. And the invitation inside of that is to start taking the steps, the action steps towards that. And if you are a woman who finds yourself comparing yourself to other women or being in competition or getting into that jealousy, inside of that is also an invitation of your soul that's saying, hey, we can do this too. So it's like about part of healing this collective sisterhood and stepping really into your feminine power is healing those wounds with other women, of recognizing that other women are permission for you to embody that thing too, that there is more than enough to go around, that there's an abundance of everything, that you get to have exactly your version of whatever else you can see out there that someone else has, and to really just give yourself the permission to go for that.
Yeah, that really resonated, where it's kind of almost feels sad because it's like that voice inside of you and it's not being acknowledged or heard or lived out. And it's like you want it just so badly, but yeah, you feel not good enough, whatever. And that's sad because you are good enough. So it's a sad thing that can turn happy is how I look at it, for sure. Yeah. And then just, Sophia, it was so great having you. I mean, this was just, it was like a conversation that I've been wanting to have for a while. And I want, it's kind of like you kind of wait for the right person to come along to explore it. So I was really glad we were able to connect. And then just if someone wanted to work with you, wanted to find you, where can they follow you?
Yeah, so Instagram is my baby. So you can find me on Instagram at Sophia_LE_page, or I have on Facebook a free Facebook group called the Rebel Queendom. And inside of there, I do weekly key code transmissions. So I share a live, I do a teaching, I have guests sometimes coming in. So there's a lot of juicy things inside of there. And then the other place that I always recommend for women to find me is on my website, which is sophialepage.com. And on there, you kind of get everything. So there is my self-study courses on there, starting from like Rebel Queen Kundalini, which is my foundational embodiment practice, right up to like things about connecting, embodying different archetypes. So connecting with your, tantric muse or your siren or your goddess energy. And there's also links there to my one-to-one and where you can, apply there for that. And I also do shorter calls, like 45-minute calls or hour-long, week-long one-to-one containers as well. So if you're not wanting to go all the way in with like a 6-month mentorship, there are ways for you to come and experience, get some tweaks and get a little magic, and then, take that and run with that. So I love doing those things as well, because I feel like even in 45 minutes, we can cover so much. Like there's so many reframes and things that can be shone a light on, that can really get you going on your journey and speed up that process for you of you getting to the place where you desire to be. So yeah, lots of ways, lots of magic.
Yeah, lots of fun stuff. No, totally. I'm all about it. I'm all about self-development and the divine feminine, for sure. But yeah, Sophia, again, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, to everyone out there, this is another great example on how spirituality and the use of different modalities and teachings can really make great changes in your daily life. As always, if you are looking for a way to relieve stress and anxious thoughts, or looking to gain some clarity, you can book a Reiki healing energy session or Akashic Records reading session with me at thenewAgeGoddess.com. Much love and namaste.